of the things about doing certain poses in yoga, there are some contradictions in many ways, and this is about truly taking care of yourself and honoring where you are. It's about being pregnant. Okay, do not do inversions when you are pregnant. Or there are subtle forms of them that you can do, and if it's really one of the things, if we have this subtle minute, I will show you basically. And this is really one of the things that if you're pregnant, sometimes your legs get they can get very heavy. And this is really kind of one of the things, I'll just show you this briefly. Move some of the tops out here. Is that, now, and this is that subtle transition, and you can just be here, but you see how this is, okay. This offers you a sensibility of this, but what it really does is it helps bathe the fetus. Okay, it really does, because now you're taking any pressure off of your legs, and the heartbeat tends to go down. And basically what happens, the internal organs and everything through this part of your body gets most of the attention and the blood flow from the heart, because it's not having to work in any activities. So this is really maybe one of your subtle options for that. Okay, and anybody that has tired legs, all those other sort of things, beautiful things. Okay, it's a beautiful, relaxing state to be. And then that beautiful transition from anything, just take some time on your side, because your nervous system goes through deep transitions when the blood tends to pool more so in the center portion of your body. Okay. Help! Help! This is something. Have you felt confined lately from all of the stuff that's been happening lately? It's like I'm stuck in your chair for school, all the schoolwork, everything else that you're doing. Are you just stuck? Like, I can't, you have to take everything with you. It's like, just dragging yourself along. This is really tough. I know this confined me things, but you know what? It's time to bust loose. Look, let's do some yoga stuff. That's just great. It's time to really get out of your spaces and just go wookie dookie with it. Okay. Well, welcome gang. Last week this is our last week of school today. And one of the beauties that we'll be doing here today is just having a lot of fun, hopefully. Yeah. And it's really one of the things, initially, I just wanted to show you a book. And you can research it and look it up online, but it really is a valuable book. It's been a great teaching book in many different ways, but it's an anatomy book, and it's called The Architecture and Design of Man and Woman. And the beauty about this book is that it covers all of the structures in your body, has very colorful, the artist has done these beautiful, colorful things in it, but it covers all your systems. But at the end of each chapter, what he's really done is he's marked off things that, if you look inside of yourself, it shows you exactly something in nature that mimics you. So realizing that same fashion, that this is really kind of one of my teaching tools anyways. Nature's been such a great teacher in my life that hopefully one of the things that you connect, and one of the background things in yoga is that it's respect for all life, not just, so many times we get focused on just humanity instead of respect for all life. So if we can move through life respecting all life, that's really hopefully one of the things. You'll see how much of this that you are made up of as well. And so please just be cognizant and aware of all of those things, and happy journeys in that. Now, one of the reasons I'm starting out here in the chair today, anyway, is that many of you probably are sitting in a chair watching your computer, doing these other things as we do today. Now, so one of the things, anything that you have, anything you sit in, stand on, all these things can be such a creative device. And so one of the things just initially, I'm just going to show you maybe a few things, okay, that, let's just say I actually want to open my chest, it's posture. Sometimes a lot of chairs aren't meant for posture, so sometimes even turning a chair around, sometimes. So you see, sometimes the back slant, this chair does not have a back slant, so it's really a good postural chair. So many times sitting backwards in a chair is really a good thing to do as well, because it asks you to actually be up front rather than slumped back like this, which pushes stuff back into you. And once again, just turning back around. And just remember, sitting anyway, things just move down into your body a lot in this area of your body. So just remember, if you're sitting a lot during the day, Get up and move 10 minutes every hour. That's one of their suggestions. I encourage it more, but then there's just the timing that they actually encourage you, so things don't get stagnant. And sometimes if you sit too long, this starts to get compressed and it'll get bigger and bigger and bigger. So if you like the shape that it's in, I encourage you to actually not prolong the process too much in your life. All right, now in that regard, so now just one of the things you can do here now is I'm just going to actually just take this and put an arm back in this fashion. So as I do that, I'm just using sort of the leg of the chair, sitting upright, and then actually just doing a spinal twist in the chair. Just keeping those things active internally is really just a good thing. And spend some time in your movements. Don't just throw yourself back and forth. Throwing actions tend to bounce muscles rather than allowing them to actually really integrate. And then just make sure that you do both sides. And remember, try to let the body actually really work from the base of the spine rather than always turning from your head first. And it's really one of those things that just these beautiful things that you can actually do is lift up, up, and open this up. Really open the heart space up. Just lifting and elegant. And it's one of the things when I lift my arm, just see how this essence of the chest splays open and the heart really gets bigger, and that way the movement of the head comes from here. It moves from the heart into the head. And then easily back down. And it is really one of the things, now let your arms just easily come back behind the chair if you wish. And that's that same thing of doing a beautiful chest expansion, just opening that heart space up once again. Beautiful spacing, just opening back up. Giving your heart lots of space inside of your body. You know, your heart is such a playful space as well, so it really helps integrate and see those things. We've talked about head and heart before and about these interesting studies that they have done with the head and the heart. Now, here it is, just taking a leg and opening, just doing these fascias, opening sideways. Lifting it higher, if it higher and becomes more into your practicality of you lifting things up, out we go, back in. Just doing these simple little things, just even from sitting you get lots of great things that really just start to happen for you. And once again, notice the weight of your body sometimes. Remember, in the yogic concept of many things, we attempt to get all the muscles to actually lengthen into each other. Okay? And if you have to, and sometimes if you have a belt or something that needs to support it out here, make sure you do that. Okay. There you go, back in, back into the center. And it's really one of the things, child's pose is in a way. You get that tired of sitting up, tired of looking at that screen, just go back down. And one of the things is you do that. You can take your arms up behind you as you do that and lift them over, so you get lots of good shoulder work as well. Now this is not in the sense of that there are so many movements you can do in a chair. It depends on sometimes the type of chair that you have as well. And just ease things easily back down, throw things easily back up. Just be smooth and transition. Make good transitions in all of the movements that you make in this. Now, just the same thing, a good side thing is if you have sort of a leg, just let the arm be on here. Here's a good way to move sideways. Remember, try not to push down into this thing, but light touch. Remember, light touch. So basically the essence of you is coming up and over. Create that beautiful under arch that you create, so that as the essence of the body moves through, the other side gets longer. And make sure that you breathe. And try to keep, now, this is really one of the things about sitting in a chair. Hopefully your sit bones, and just the way that your butt fits in places, okay, try to keep it even though I'm moving to one side, try to feel it even underneath you. That way you're keeping the foundation. And just look at this easy transition. You're already expanded. Lifting that. When you reach this center point, take that moment and just lift. And then start to come over. But give yourself as much vibrancy and elasticity in life as you can. And that essence of breath, Just notice how breath moves in your system, regardless of whatever movement that you're making. Then these arms, and coming out, we can do this standing or sitting. Okay. And it's in that same way, just do expansive twisting actions. You can come a little further, closer to the front of the chair. Just do these twisting actions of things being out and open. Glide back and forth. Just glide back and forth in your ways of doing those things. Now as you come back to center, now I'm going to come off the chair just a little bit, and it's really one of the things about, as you look at this and just, now, legs come over and just coming to the front edge of the chair. Now just be careful you're not too far on the front edge of the chair. And then just do these basic. You see forward bending, your arms can be out, they can be on the chair if you wish, and just easily glide down. Just stay momentarily so you start to get the effect of something. This is really one of the things that if you're there, you can also hear the things that are coming to you as well, and you're just doing these things as well. You just may not be, the visual aspect may be split here, but the senses are picking up what's happening in front of you if you're receiving instructions or being in your chair. And then just easily glide up. Let that back side of your body come back down. Reset your back into that. And just here, I encourage this a lot in your chair. You see just how this is lifting and moving, so it's getting things to actually just be really vibrant and loose in that fashion, doing those things. Now, up, I'm just going to make another little transition back into the chair. Now, so it's one of the things about creating this. Now, here I am here. Okay. Now, try to keep this rooting here. Now, remember, lifting from the face of the body. And the arms are just kind of sliding down. Now, you keep this intact of the body, but you see how the shoulders roll open? The heart space comes naturally into play. You just go from here. Don't try to go too far back sometimes, okay? Just stay in your own balancing aspect and use sort of the legs as a rooting thing. And you can even hook them on your chair like that if you wish. Just use good common sense. I'm going to use that phrase a decent amount sometimes, common sense. But let this really roll open so the heart gets back and that spine gets a nice little curvature in your body. Now let the face of your body just descend back in, and you naturally come right back up into space. And it's one of the things, I'm just going to come off the chair. Once again, I'm going to move the chair just a little further back. Just coming down in this respect of here. Okay. Now just hold on to the chair. Now, as I do that, I'm just going to glide my butt kind of down into the chair in that respect. Okay. Now, and I'm actually just going to keep this rooted, but you see how my hands are really rooted in here. And now you see how I just actually lift right up. And we'll be practicing shoulder stand later, but this is just one of the ways to actually do it with your chair. And you're not pushing, you're balancing that element of rolling the shoulders under and the feet moving against the chair, but you're moving that same engaging with the arms in that fashion. And the shoulders are really rolled underneath. There's no compression in the spine. Easily back down. Now, sliding back into the chair. I'm right back into the chair once again. I'm up and over. Out we go. And sometimes having this element of something right there kind of keeps that alignment for you right in the space that you're actually really using. You can do all of these great little things with the legs as they go back and forth. But you're engaged, the arms and things are engaged away and down away from you. Okay. So now, we're just going to let that move. I'm just going to come back up, roll onto my side. And now, there's many, many things you can still do with this chair, but for right now, we are just going to let this guy just go over to the side and come back. Now, and I'm just going to come back now, sitting on your other apparatus. This. Okay. And if you wish to sit cross-legged, open-legged, that's your best design, whichever the thing that works for your own body. Now, opening this up. Open this up a little bit. And one of the things, once again, just go back and forth some of these things. And just try to keep the sit bones rooted, but just go back and forth sometimes. You just feel how the body moves easily just above you. And now we're just going to do these little circular actions. So you just get that little stirring in the spinal column. And the way that you're just introducing the upper and the lower body to each other in many different ways. But just be smooth as you can, just gliding through this process. Easy head movements. Just let that head be at rest. Now, when you come up into the center, just pause for a moment and then just reverse that process. Just down, back, and through. You have this great ability in your own body to actually, you're almost like this carnival ride, so that when you do things, you know, there's many things you pay to do when you can just do inside of your own body, just by twisting and turning and swirling, doing all of these things. It does great things for your system as well. Now, when I come up this next time, I'm just going to actually stack this. Now, if you can, maybe just put your hands right here and walk just briefly so you get those sit bones to actually just walk forward. You get that spine to just tuck in just a little better for you. Now, just take this one hand up, one hand here. Try not to throw yourself because of what your arms want to do, but extend and then reach, but rotate the shoulder open and do a nice little open twist. Lots of nice open space. Remember, try to keep that head and heart space somewhat connected. Lifting with that inhaling breath. It has its expansive ability. So just really feel as if you lift, and then as you exhale, rotate. That emptying space allows so much different space inside of your system as you create it, just by emptying. And then it's an easy transition, just floating before us. I'm going to talk a little bit too sometimes about my own experiences about, I like to go into the yard where I live and actually just do yoga, but a lot of time I spend on my back just working with the sky and what transitions are happening in the sky that day. And you get this interesting element about how clouds actually move with each other. And it's actually a great listening tool and learning tool in ways of that it shows you when you integrate into your system. You just notice how clouds have this feathery ability to actually just separate, but they move and they join. And it's the same way if you let your tissue do that same thing, that as you make movements, allow that essence to actually flow to the next thing in a way, so that you have connectivity from one thing to the next in that way. And you notice that beautiful ability, the way the clouds just move. And sometimes they move quicker because of wind, upper atmospheric conditions, but just notice that when you have these beautiful days when the clouds just are transitioning in beautiful different shapes, follow those shapes in your own body if you have the opportunity to be outdoors and on your back and looking up in that respect. But speaking on your back, that's where we're going, down on your backs. Well, here we are now, just down on my back. So just initially, I want you to just take your legs up. Just remember, here's that good lifting position. If you can remember, kind of have that subtle flatness in your spine. That way you know that everything's right underneath you, right up above. Now, just take that. Now, allow the mouth to be open. I'm speaking words, but you notice when I actually shake, when I'm actually really just shaking things, this is such good stuff for your nervous system. Everything just starts to get me moving. It really loosens everything inside of your system. So that's one of the things about sitting in a chair too long. Things tend to settle. It's like that sediment just rests. And this way you just, now let your body go, and let your mouth open so that you're, really, bring the whole family in and let them just shake together. It's a good thing. They can just create such good harmony inside if they do things. Now, here we go, just with those legs now. Bring them subtly. Don't just jam brakes on when you do things. See if you can actually just subtly let things find their place when you move things around. They have a new place of settling in you. So just see if you can find those. Now, open this easily up. Now, the arms can be out here. Those of you that have a little more trouble with that, but try to get the legs to be long and expansive. And if you need your arms out here to kind of support that, make sure that you can do that. If you don't, the arms can be out here, they can be beside you. Some people find it easier to be right underneath, extended underneath, so they support the pelvis. That helps the legs expand. And when you're ready, easily just draw it. That center body just softens back in. That allows the legs to really close easily. Let's open that up once again. Now, let your arm positions determine that. You have options. Just use your own good judgment. Your own body has all of this great body wisdom. So using it in good ways. Now, back, close. Easily just drop back in right from here and open. It does. Learning these great ways of moving and coming back together. Now, the legs are back up above me. I'm just kind of doing this little swinging action underneath of my hips. And if it's tough for you to do that, the legs can be folded down. If you prefer it up, it's preferred up. Okay, now as I come back into that center spot and that's subtly closed, I'm going to open this up once again. Now as I open it, now you see how I'm just actually going to create this sort of swing. I'm giving my hips this swirling action underneath. Now once again, if your legs need to be folded, let them be folded. And then easily, just come back to center. Always pay attention and be connected to your extremities. So if you have trouble, if things want to always push back in, let the extremities really work. And that way it tells you you're working through your legs to that point. Back in we come. Okay. Now from that point, I'm just going to bring one leg down. You just determine which one. My left leg is coming down. I'm taking that right leg over. And the arms are just doing this big spread work up to here. This is just get that spine and pelvic region nice and elongated, the shoulders as well. And then just ease down to the side of the cross leg side, the one that's on top. And once again, try not to just, pull yourself with this. This is really just there for actually added weight and actually feel that you really want to open up from into here and be expansive up here. So once again, you're not taking things, you're just creating more space for something to happen internally. When you do that, you have this great opportunity for things to actually realign inside of you. And now I'm just going to take this top leg and slide it underneath. And now, big expression from the other leg, the one that you were just actually really working with in that fashion. Just extend it. But also, remember, extend across the face of the chest and out through that arm and fingers. Have alive arms and hands too. So nothing is left behind in your movements. That essence of total consciousness in your system is really so valuable. Because everything stays alive, regardless of the subtlety of the movement. And when you reach back to center, up we come. And now we're just going to do that opposite leg. Good crossover, good link, and then down it comes. Easy transitions, not the yanking. Don't feel, there's a real tendency that people don't want to yank with that leg. Just let it be that. So that really the opening really comes from down through there. And really expand that heart and chest open. So you're really getting this alive feeling all the way through everything. Just big expansion. And now once again, I just let this leg slide off as it just tucks underneath. Now the hips can slide underneath it and stack a little more if you want to. Sometimes they get a little underneath and out of line. If you want to stack them up right on top of each other and then extend that leg as best you can. You know, it's for me, I've done this a few times, so it's coming up to that hand, but if that doesn't work for you, if it's way down lower, then let that transition be there for you. But once again, breathe, just, feel how you just open into pathways. The breath is like those internal clouds in your body as well. An easy transition back up, here and going. Now we're just going to actually just work this where both legs now come down to one side. Upper body stays nice and long. Nice and long. And now once again, if your legs need to fold for you or just kind of that, but try not to push back in too much. Try to every once in a while, if they have to come in, just try to at least give one leg more life so that everything expands up. Try to keep this rooted, nice and rooted underneath you. Such beautiful chiropractic work that you're doing as well. And an easy transition over, just let the essence of the body rotate underneath. And there you go, you're back. Transitions, just if you can, just make these transitions such a beautiful thing inside of your system. And you can just check with the legs. You like the legs lower? Do you like them higher? And sometimes, if and when you're doing these things, and you kind of hear that dunk, sometimes those clunks inside of your body, things are just moving internally. Sometimes we're always moving things from the surface, and some of these depth of things that we move, an easy transition back. Easy fold, happy baby pose. Just easily open this transition up. And like, wow, here we go, open. But now, try to just move the essence of the spine through that. So many times people want to just yank up like this, where everything moves towards the head. But really you're trying to get that pelvic region to really open sideways, and then let the head be still, but lengthen the spine through this space. So you're trying to actually just lengthen it through. Keep letting this feel as if it wants to open, and yet it wants to move it this way as well, but then you keep moving that center point of the body through. Space, space, space. And then when it's ready, just easily comes right back up, easily. Okay, now we're going to come up to sitting, but as we come up to sitting, remember we've done happy baby pose, so if the arms and the legs are up, easy transition forward. And if you can, it's not a matter of just throwing yourself through space. Now, if you need that support underneath, just make sure that that's in place for you. Try not to push, collapse the spine, but try to keep the spine as long as you can. Now, let one leg move down towards the floor. And one leg is going to stay up with you. Now if it comes all the way to the floor, or if you want to just leave it extended a little ways above the floor, some people, if it's a little more difficult in that way, and if the leg wants to rest on the floor, let it do that. But now just engage this other leg and try not to bend it into you or push the spine back. Try to keep that elongation in your spine, but lift the leg up. Now we're going to attempt to close this space a little bit, but as we close this space, it's not a matter of me pulling the leg into me so that it pushes the body backwards. It's a matter of really flexing in the center of your body so they come together that way. So things are moving down in here, so things come back up. Once again, use your extremities if you need to, wiggle around. Don't be stuck. These things have very linear actions to them, but let so much thing be alive. That's the beauty about what happens in these. Now when it's ready, just transition. The beauty about it sometimes is that you notice the essence of what's happening on the outside, but it's what's really happening, transitioning on the inside. There's this beautiful stillness and interaction that you take when you move these things in that regard. And it is in the way of that. Notice if the spine is slumping, elongate and lift it up. And then draw the leg as well. So you keep moving both sides of this inside of the pose. It's the center space that actually closing, but it's softening down inside of you as you do that. Now, as that is ready, let the bottom leg come down if it's not already down. This other leg just comes down easily. And then just easily be up. Now that we're sitting right here in this good position, just give your shoulders some good interaction. So give those shoulders some good interaction. Good flowing motion. And then just reverse that process when you're ready. But try to give yourself full rotation as you do that. Full rotation. And now, as that easily just comes back to rest. Now these little pinball actions in our arms here, just, okay, you're just drawing the fingertips up. Okay, as you're drawing those fingertips up, nice big expansion up. And it's one of the dexterity of your shoulders is going to tell you sometimes if they come up wide or can they come as close to your head as they can. So you're really opening those armpits, those tricep muscles are really opening. So you're lifting, you're just letting that shoulder girdle, boom, go to its natural place in your body as you do this. Now this transition of just going, boom, with the hands now come back behind your head. Come back down, lift this up, boom. Straight up as best you can so things go down into your body. And then without moving them back up, just transition like this. So the shoulders just rotate. And then one last time. Good lift. As you notice when that shoulder girdle goes down, how much the heart goes, whoo! It just comes up for you. So much space inside. Plus the spine gets this nice, beautiful little lift. And then just, boom, transition. Notice in this way of that, does the head get pushed way forward? And that just tells you some dexterity about dexterity in your shoulders. That's it. Let the arms easily now just come up. But leave this down. Remember, try not to push things into the head, but soften that space around it. So even if the arms come way in, way in, way in, way in, there's this space that goes down because the shoulder girdle is down rather than pulling things up with you. Now it's one of the things, rotate out, bring it down. Lift up in the center. Once again, we did this kind of in the chair, but we're just now doing it on the floor as well. So remember, try not to push in or lean into, but keep things space open. Lift up in that center spot, and over we go. Try to keep, there's a real tendency to want to roll in the pose. If you can, stay rooted underneath. So the real separation takes place from that center body. If you just take things with you, you see how everything just pushes back into something. So try to stay up and over once again. And sometimes just check in with your hand that if I let go of this hand, oh, do I go over? That tells you, that you're not up and over something. Now you have this expansion in your upper body, so just see what that transition does, just as you transition. It's a beautiful, easy transitions. The transitions are really your grace points in ways of just moving, if you can. The whole process is very graceful, but transitions really show the grace and actually really open those channels inside of your system. And this is really one of the things sometimes about just getting sort of locked in place. So many times we get so serious that let your facial expressions broaden and change sometimes too. Okay, so you're pop and smack those lips. Remember, that's good stuff, and I'll explain that a little later, how working your lips is really good for that pineal gland as well. Okay? And it's really good for just what happens upstairs in the mind as well. Okay, now, here I am. We're just going to actually create some creative work before we actually come up above. Okay? Draw the legs in this respect. Okay? Draw the hands here. Now, see if you can just open the pelvic region as best you can. So these joints roll open and then you initially come through. Now, extend as far as you can and then feel the belly move in as you start to just round into this space. Remember, sometimes we spend a lot of time maybe in your own dwelling. So many times as we start to go back into the world sometimes is that the world can seem like a crazy place. This is really that great seal, the great yoga mudra, that actually really helps you move back into yourself. You see how you just take the mind and the body and you create this looping effect so it stays within you rather than being drawn to the outer world. Just discovering your inner world is really so valuable in everything that you do. And I'm sure this space at home is actually giving you lots of opportunity to check into yourself. And you see that big difference in those transitions of out in the world and into your own inner world. So this has many valuable elements to it as well. Now, so when that's really to emerge, it just easily emerges right back through that. Okay, just come back into this space. And just walk into this space, you feel it just nice and up. Now as I do that, one leg is just going to transition out. Now draw this other leg as close to you as you can. Just drawing that leg as close to you as you can. Okay. Now some of you, depending on your body type, it might have to be out like this. Just notice that, the way that it fits inside of your own system. But you're drawing yourself up into this space. Elegant lift. So you're up, reach inside. But as you reach inside, just feel this space and then loop back. So you're actually transitioning back into this, and then just extend the body forward as best you can. Just extend it forward. Letting this element of the body moving subtly back and you subtly moving forward. Just beautiful transitions. Try not to struggle. If you, in these ways of struggling, if you do find this place of where you feel that you are struggling, back off just a little bit and subtly re-monitor your approach into how you got into such a deep struggle. So many times it's our approach that actually causes our own problems. Okay. Now then I'm just going to transition this back up. Now I'm just going to let this leg just be back right where it is. Okay. Now as it comes back and forth, loop across. So I'm just going to loop across for that facing arm. Now try to keep the trunk. You see how my shoulders are rotating away in this fashion, even though the back arm is going to come back. I try to keep this space in my heart open. I lift and I transition inside this way. Now I'm drawing this leg somewhat towards me as I move. That helps open the backside and loops across. But remember, if you feel really pushed in and compressed here, feel as if you open to the backside. So that there you just slide. Slide and glide. Spinal twists are great interaction teaching poses for you to really learn those transitions inside. Once again, it just easily transitions out. Easily transitions out. Slide in, and when you're ready, just draw this other leg to you. Now, I encourage people to walk with your sit bones into this space just a little tighter. Okay. Once again, that elevates things inside, just tucks that spine in a little bit more. Now that I'm in this space, arm comes up. And you'll feel yourself kind of fall inside with this arm as you do that. Now just reach and loop. Sometimes people have trouble with this, so once this arm gets inside, just loop it back. Now, and you see how this arm is an encouragement as it goes back, as it braces back into this leg, you see how I transition forward. So you're getting this transition in this fashion. You're just using these little switching elements in your system to make that transition. Just let the head be on top of the spine in the way that this is working. Some of you might have a deeper folding ability in this, and that's fine. This is beautiful work for actually really getting a lot of that compression out of the lower back. Such good work for the intestines as well. This great internal work that you're really creating in all of these things. And when it easily comes back for you. Once again, just have that good uprightness, and then you just loop. But even though you loop here, you see how many times people just want to hug themselves in? Feel that you keep the chest space open, even though the shoulder loops around. And the back arm now just comes back. That's nice, long lift, and then transition through. Try to feel yourself slide rather than pulling yourself through. Okay. You'll notice in your own internal language sometimes about just using sound sometimes. Am I, are you struggling, or are you, Try those different sounds in your system sometimes and just feel how you're transitioning. when you create interactions inside of your own system, let them emanate as well. Harmonize with your breath. Create good harmony. Just always create good harmony. And then here we are. This easily good transition back forward. As we make that space back forward, we're just going to now bring most of these things and come up to standing as you're ready. Now, depending on you, let's come into a squatting pose. Now, if that's a free squat, you have this free squatting pose, or the arms come underneath for this supported squat. Now, remember, if your heels don't come to the floor, take that blanket and make a nice big roll out of your blanket so that instead of you being pushed down by this, because it's hard to get your feet back down, that blanket will help you, because in the squatting pose you want to relax back so the internal organs have this great ability to really expand and be open in your body. Just give yourself good support underneath that if you need this, like with my arm stuck in between. If you don't need that space, you can open this up in the center and just have your hands as what they refer to as in the prayer mudra, in that fashion. Okay. Now, what I'm going to really do here is press into one side. You can do that with your arms underneath you, and you see how I press into one side and I kind of twist and rotate away from that space. And then I just easily transition right back. Coming back, press into the other side and just easily rotate through that space once again. Now I'm back to center. Now as I'm back to center, here it is in this way. Now just lift easily. Just let the power in your legs draw you up. There's a subtle hang in your body as you do that. And then just come up halfway. Now just remember that good sort of when you tuck that tailbone space inside of your body, you get that great lifting ability that actually comes in, that natural hinge that shows up in your body. Now that we're up, just kind of be loose in your legs. Just be really loose in your legs. And now we can just take one leg and just kind of be, you see how I'm just letting this hip joint and this leg just dance in space. So it just has its own expression by just the way that it's moving. And you can see I can make these circles, I can make bounces in and out. Just kind of make your own transitions however you're doing that. But the action is coming from up here. And then when one leg is finished, you just transfer. Get the other one light. So my foot is really happy in space. So it's light a foot. So I'm actually just really working that hip joint open. And I can be back and forth open in this fashion or swirleries. Just kind of do it as best, which works for you. It's always nice that sometimes if you want to mix stuff up, to tie things on your body that you can shake it up. It shows you. Mix your drinks, just tie them onto you and mix your drinks just by swirling your hips around. All the great things you can do at home and nobody's watching. It's really good things to discover these things. Okay. Now I'm just going to actually loop these hips around. We've done this numerous times before. Okay. And just loop the hips around, but feel the exact motions that you're actually doing with all of this. So you're really getting full expression all the way around. Good loops. And then re-loop. Happy, happy, happy hips. However they seem to gyrate, I encourage gyration. Okay. Now, here it goes. Really let them fly. Let them really just go. That figurating effect. They just woo. And sometimes let your arms just be so you're just really in it. And then just whoop the other way. Just reversing processes. And getting those hips nice and loose. Okay. Now, back just into that center spot. This is really one of the things about settling into your body. Now, remember we talked last time about the perineum muscle, that mula bandha. So you actually try to find that space between the genitalia and the anus and find if you can lift it up. Now as you take an inhaling breath, just, you see how I'm just lifting it back to me? As I exhale, I let it go. Keep that good pelvic floor good for you. Back up as you inhale, draw it back up. But see if you can really isolate this rather than sort of making your ass do all of the work and that sort of thing, trying to lift things. Isolate and just up and down back through. Remember, we've talked about that pelvic floor in your body. This is so valuable for it. Many terms are used for this: Kegel exercises, all of the other sort of things, but that pelvic floor is really important. Okay, it helps seal and keep the energy in your body. We have these places in our body which actually are eliminatory channels in your body. That space in between is a great sealing place for your body. Okay, so they stay intact inside of you. Okay, now just open this up just a little bit. Just let your feet walk open. Kind of let your body be loose in doing that. Now, it's in this fashion of just swinging through this space, but expand all the way back through. And almost have that sort of, if you watch primates, they have this, the way that they move, and it's like, but they have this great expansion through their system as they do that. And you can even beat on your chest, if you wish a little bit, be the silverback. Just releasing power in your system as you expand through it. Now as I come back into this center spot. Now I'm just going to let the legs, instead of them being set up bent, I'm going to let them lift, and as I come back into that transition, that easy transition that comes back into this space. Now here we are, okay, from here. Now I'm going to turn sideways for some of these things, okay. Now, what we're going to actually be doing here is working a little bit with the Warrior series and some of the other things that transition with that. So now I'm just going to draw my hands to my heart. Okay. Now just in this great balancing effect of doing this, so initially as I move up, I'm going to take the leg I'm going to step up with me. And as I open this space, feel as if you open and then boom, down you come. Big openings in your body. Now I'm actually going to move this way for this pose. So now I'm just going to open, but I'm not turning from the pelvis. I'm trying to just spin open, and this back foot is turned in just slightly. Arms nice and expansive. Up they go. That soft head transition right through the front fingertips. Now the beauty about this, in ways that if you're up and buoyant in your body. Now you see how all I'm really doing, you never have to push into a pose. When I'm up and open, you see, boom, it's just a flexing of the leg. Because then you don't feel any of that pressure that moves into the body, because you're not pushing any pressure into it. It's just a flexation, because you're up above the pose. Now we've talked a little bit about this, remember, during sort of heavy menstrual cycles, that these poses are meant to really draw and move a lot of energy up through you. And menstrual cycles, things tend to move down through you. So just be cautious about how you use them during that cycle of your life. Now from being expansive in that way, reverse warrior. So the back arm just comes down. I don't take the front foot with me. There's a real tendency that people want to draw back, stay there, but lift up and subtle arch back. Good armpit check. Good breathing. Everything is so open, so draw up with it. And now easily back there. Now if you can, we're going to stay with this. Now this is the transition for muscle groups in your body. Now, so you see how I soften over this hip joint? I just let it soften in. I come down and the arm comes up. So there's this transition, but let this arm subtly brace into your leg and rotate that lower rib cage underneath you and expand this arm up above. Now the transition for some people is that they want to loop through. So they loop through with the back arm, rotate that front arm over. So they're looping through. And now, as I'm ready to transition out, I just release that. Now, we can actually transition this into a triangle pose. So you see, once again, I'm letting the body kind of move through the pelvic region back. Now, some people, if you want to make that transition to come back all the way up and then back forward, please do that. But if those of you, if you have that in you, that when I'm from here, you see how I let the hip joints just open, and I'm right in the triangle pose. Otherwise, you can be up here, and then letting the hip joint, you pour yourself down into the pose, and you open this way. Personal choices, there should just be a bound inside of your system. And now it's just as I come down out of triangle pose. You're really expansive through the upper body, and you just transfer right over the pelvic region in your system. Easy down, we come with the arms. Now, from doing that, just the reverse thing. Here I go on the other side. Arms swing up. But once again, lots of life in here. Drop shoulder droop. An easy transition right through those front fingertips. Now remember, I'm up and buoyant, so boom. All I do is bend. And try to remember to have that subtle, beautiful alignment of the knee over the ankle joint and the body in line with the foot. Once again, these are big pulses, so watch your breathing as well. Now, as I'm ready to make that transition back, you see how the back arm is just boom. I just transition because I'm light in space. So it's just beautiful rotations. And then it's back in. Okay, now as I reach this space, now if you want to shake your legs out or straighten them back out, make sure you do that so you're not locked in. And now I just make this transition down. And once again, let this center body, so when you're moving this center body, you see how when the lower rib cage moves in, the upper rib cage, the body just opens up and over itself. Now here I'm in this opening position. If you want to reach through, you can reach through. And that's a beautiful wrap of doing that. Keep trying to make that transition of that element of things moving through you. So you're transitioning those rib cages. And now, as I'm ready, here we go, transitioning right into triangle pose. Like I say, you can come up all the way and then transition down, or you can just transition straight from that pose into triangle pose. Personal options. As I easily transition up, easy now, just let the body float down here and try to stay expansive in your legs and just roll down into this place. Now if the hands want to come down underneath you for that, that's a great thing. Now if the knees need to bend for you, okay, let them do that, because I'm just going to reach one arm out in front of me and the other arm out in front of me. Now I'm going to let some of the weight of my body transition forward towards my arms so that one leg can step back, the other leg can step back. And now I'm in position for downward facing dog. Now roll those shoulders nice and open so the eyes of the elbows really reveal themselves. And don't push down into the floor, but elongate over that space. So you really, and the belly, remember, is long inside of the body. So it's not pushed down. You'll notice that there's transitions. Roll those shoulders open. Glide back through. Powerful hips. Now one of the things sometimes, take this and really lift way up on the balls of your feet, but don't, without pushing forward, but lifting them up towards the sky. So you really get all the height in your legs and everything in the hip joints, and then just boom, let them all go right back into your legs. You can really gather tissue in that expansion, so it really expands to your legs many times. So sometimes now, just let yourself spin on the balls of your feet, so that you actually transition these pelvic and those hips are moving through space. Now as I come back to center with this pose, Now easily transition forward into plank pose. Just try to find that good transition point here where the arms are underneath the shoulders, the body is nice and long for you. Now, pay attention to your hips and just boop, pop them right back up, back into downward facing dog. Now we're just going to transition into upward facing dog. Now that's in that fashion as we move forward. It's the same way kind of coming into plank pose. Only it's drawing from the heart space. Keep your legs strong so they're not, boom, dropping to the floor. Keep the legs up and open and draw forward. And sometimes people like the feet flat. Some people stay on their toes. But keep the legs as strong as you can so they're not lazy. So that allows everything to glide right through the shoulders, right through the heart. And now back we go. Back to downward facing dog. And just easy transition, and now just let the body easily transition back, plank pose. Easy down, child's pose. Just that relaxation place. Really allow yourself to really relax in that child's pose. Have the legs open enough so you can just fit between that space. Such a good resting pose. So really allow yourself to really rest. Now as I'm ready to transition out of child's pose, bring myself easily back up. Now, this is really one of the elements of coming back up. We're going to step back into a squatting pose. Easily back down again. And if you need that transition element underneath you, just make sure that that's what you do. Up it comes. Easy, good transition. Now we're just going to kind of complete some other little things here from a standing place. So once again, I'm going to step up. So I'm actually now transitioning this. And there's different ways to do this. Some people just stretch out, but we're just adding this balancing element to this. So now, up this comes. And when you're ready, out it goes. So now coming into Virabhadrasana, Warrior One pose. So this is really one of the things about just noticing your feet. Before they were pretty even. So now we're just going to take, this is going to be my back foot. So I'm just going to take a step forward with that foot. So it's actually, so you see now the feet are in different places instead of being across from each other. Now, so I'm going to take this back foot and turn it in quite a bit. You'll notice that this hip is starting to move. Now I just lift from the center and I spin. So I'm facing the direction I'm going. And you see the spacing, this is good and open spacing for me. Now, this is a pose here now. I'm going to take this, we did this little pinball action that really just helps move the heart in good space and the shoulder girdles as well. So when that comes up, now really let everything lift way up for you. Now as it does that now, once again, I'm really elevated, so all I have to do is bend the front leg. I just bend the front leg. I don't push into it. All I'm having to do is bend it. And now let that heart really express it. Sometimes the body drifts backwards a little more. But not by pushing it back. It's by elevating it over the pelvic region. Such good heart strengthening. Hearts are in such good places. Such a good place to be. Now, I'm just going to let that front leg straighten. And I'm going to let the body come down. And I'm just going to let the hands come behind me. And down I come into a forward bend. Now people can transition out of this in their own way. Sometimes people elongate the spine, otherwise you can just bend this front leg and kind of let the rib cages rest near it, and then just let it go back this way, just kind of, as that front leg lifts, it will actually lift you right back into yourself. Now here I am from this place, arms open. We're going into the revolved triangle pose. So now as I revolve in that triangle, I let the body kind of twist and I open it from side to side and I reach across. So I'm going to the outside. You see how I'm transitioning across. Once again, this inner work of the rib cages underneath, they rotate into that space. I expand up. Once again, letting those rib cages really extend so that get this beautiful rotation inside of the pose. But always monitor the expansion in a pose for yourself. Now, as I start to come out of this, I'm going to make this transition down. So as I start to make this transition, the top arm just easily drifts down. Now, as I do that, I bend over this front leg once again, so that I'm resting on it. Now we're going to go into half moon pose, which is a balancing pose in this room. Now, so as I start to transition forward, there's subtle, I kind of let my body kind of go into this subtle little momentum kind of base. So now, as I start to come forward, boom, I'll know when I'm right over this front leg and I lift up. Now I lift the outside arm. Now some people have their block underneath here. So as I have that block, now I'm just going to, now this is where you get into this rib cage and hips. And you see, and you're using these inner leg muscles. So as that does that, you see now how the hip joints just start to stack. And this arm can stay with you, or it can go up above you as well. Now some people try not to get really heavy into that front leg, but lift as much as you can so you're light in space. So the hips can really rotate. If they're pushed into that leg, they can't. There's compression back into you. Lifting so that there's space for things to move. And in that transition down, it's an easy transition down. As I come back down, that back leg comes down for me. Here I am, I'm in a bent position, so when that leg straightens, I just lift myself back up. So good, easy transitions for yourself. And now we're just going to go to the other side. So once again, my legs are even in this fashion. Boom, I take a big step forward. And then I turn that foot in pretty dramatically. So the hip joints have this space of moving, and then I just rotate. So now I'm facing the direction that I'm going. I'm plugged back in. Are you plugged in? Okay. Now, here we are. We're going to start this out. Virabhadrasana 1, Warrior 1 pose. Now I remind you, so many times people get in this confusion of where the back foot isn't wide enough and the hips are facing this way and yet their front leg is over here. So take your front hip joint, put your finger on it and just go like this. And you see how the body turns. So you're facing. Beautiful. Good way to work. Okay. Just have enough space open this way so you can make that transition for yourself. Now I lift up. Really good open armpits. Swing it. Back around. Get this beautiful elevation. Once again, you have this beautiful elevation of the heart space really opening up. So that you're already up above, and then it's just a transition. You just bend. You don't have to follow that bend because you're up above that bend already. And you have such beautiful ways to bring breath into your system. Now as I make that transition, I let this front hip joint just go softly back into me as I just loop all over this space. Now your hands can be, sometimes people have two blocks depending on how far they come. Okay? I'm not using blocks today in that respect, so just have some stability things if you need them on each side of you for yourself. But try to let the hip joints soften back into you. That allows you to you see this over and under effect that you get in your side of your system. So once again, you glide inside of your system rather than stick. Now, easy transition there. So I'm just going to let this front leg bend and then let the essence of that leg lift me back into that. And just that easy transition now into revolve triangle pose. Arms up and down. You see, just this sweep, so it's a nice long reach, and then down I come. Now, try not to push this arm into you, but keep this shoulder rolled open. So the shoulder stays soft inside of the body, instead of trying to wrench it from there. So many people try to turn their body from their shoulder, rather than from that rib cages. So the trunk of the body easily has this beautiful rotation inside of it. Such beautiful spinal work. Beautiful transition down. Now once again, here's this transition down into half moon pose. So you see how I'm resting here. Now the hand is going to come outside of this space. So as I'm outside of this space, my shoulders are broader than my hips, so that's why the arm is a little further out. So now, as I come forward, you see when I get right over this leg, boom, up I come. I just lift. Now, I just have this stability if I have my block here, if you need it. But now, you see this transition here. The hips start to rotate up. That inner leg muscle is really working as well. So now the hips start to stack. That back leg is kind of my rudder. And if the arm is to come up for you, there it comes. And one of the things in balancing elements like this, if it feels like it's coming apart, so many times we struggle and strain to keep things in place, we lock joints up. If it's going to fall apart, let it fall apart. We always have this opportunity to transition back into it. So now, as you're ready, easily transition down. Back foot comes down. Softly. Softly. Just back in, easily back up. As you're easily back up, just kind of come in mountain pose temporarily. Just be loose in your bodies. Just check in with your joints sometimes and how do they feel? Are you locked into place or are you... And letting yourself just notice the tension when it goes out of the muscles, how they let the skeletal system just relax as well. It's not held and struck into place. Now just from this, wider, I'm just going to widen. Now as I widen that space, I'm just going to come forward. Now try not to push back from your butt. Remember, lift up, up, up. So you're feeling as if you're extending forward, forward, forward. And then just, so that way, all you do is flex from the waist and come down. Transition pose. Just a marvelous pose for if your head gets too full of schoolwork, all this other stuff. This is like a flushing. Mind you, the blood pressure goes up. Remember when you're bent forward. When the head's below the heart, the blood pressure goes up. So just monitor that. Now if your arms want to come out to connect to your legs, they want to hang into the center in this fashion. Some people like to extend through their legs. Okay. But try to keep this beautiful triangular shape elegantly lifted into your system. Remember, you're still in mountain pose. You've just transitioned it into something else. And now, just from this hangover place, what I'm really going to do is now just take one arm and reach towards one leg and just kind of rotate the rib cages towards that leg just a little bit. Just a transition, and then I'm just going to slide right across and do the same thing towards the other side. And then I'm just easily coming right back into that center spot. Then one more extension back through if that's the way you want it, or the arms just hanging, or the arms staying connected to your leg. Personal choices. You always have personal choices. Hopefully they're good ones that you make. Now easily as we come back forward. Now as I'm back forward, come up to this halfway position. Okay, once again we're making this transition. So we want the blood pressure to even out. Sometimes one of the ways that they actually help blood pressure equalize is to make soft little fists. That connection has a connection to the heart and the mind in that respect. Okay. Now, so once again, when that tailbone slides in, we just transition right back up. Now as I'm back up in that position, I'm just going to step back in and just momentarily be back in mountain pose. Just let yourself feel as much of that comes over you as you can. It's in that essence they use those terms, strong like mountains, so the appearance of that, and yet flow like water. Now I'm easily just going to bring everything back down, so it's just an easy transition back down to the floor. And we're going to work just briefly here with shoulder stand right now. And this is really one of the things that there are two, the shoulder stand is considered the queen pose in yoga, the headstand the king pose in yoga. And it's one of the things that, in my way, I actually prefer to teach the headstand in person, you might say, because having this great connection between your head and your shoulders is really vitally important in inversion poses. Now, so here I am as I turn this. Okay. I'm just going to turn, I'm just going to do it from this vantage point from here. So as I start to go up, now, as I start to come back, now people can use momentum sometimes to swing, but one of the things I want to do here is as I come back, you see how the legs are starting to bring towards the shoulders in that respect. So as I do that, I kind of use that momentum to kind of just propel myself up from my shoulders, and I draw my hands underneath. Now I try to rotate my shoulders enough in this way underneath me, and some people have blankets underneath them for this. I have these nice beautiful sheepskins. And you see how this, now my hands are basically, if you can almost see, you can probably get a good idea from camera angles, that they're up. Now remember, even though the pose looks as if it's coming down towards me, actually inversion poses are elevating poses. Now the transition of one of the things that goes on with this is that now my head and my body are very close to each other, so I have that transition down through. So that thyroid gland is getting a nice squeeze. So in that squeeze, as I'm doing this now, I'm just going to transition from this, and sometimes people are here, they open their legs, they cross their legs, they put them in half eagle pose, they squeeze, they do these things. So I'll leave this up to you kind of in your own personal way of that, doing that. Just try and maintain the integrity of what's the foundation of the pose is. Shoulder stand. Okay. It's not the cervical vertebrae or anything that's pushed into the ground. Remember, it's the shoulders. Now, I'm going to just make a subtle transition into what's referred to as plow pose. Now, I'm just going to use one leg at a time and down. Now, as I do that, I'm not trying to push everything into my head. Now, I'm trying to rotate my shoulder just even almost a little deeper. Just, you see how we're rotating almost as if we were in bridge pose. But I'm feeling, instead of things pushing down into me, the spine and the hips lift up. So there's no pressure down into me. And the hands can come back here, they can extend long, the fingers can be interlocked, personal choices. The legs can open, so you can see through, see what the sky is like. Drawing back in, the legs and the knees can fold. So this comes down beside your head in that respect as well. Now as I make that transition up, once again I'm just going to use one leg at a time. Some people use different methods. I'm just going to use that one leg at a time. Try not to collapse down into the poses. Remember, inversion poses are elegantly up poses. They're expansive. And one of the suggestions that, just remember, inversions Your body is, the nervous system, all these transitions are going on in a different way. So you need to be really cautious about your transitions out of the pose. So you don't, when you're inverting, the nervous system goes through a deep transition. So don't jerk yourself up to answer the phone, do anything in that fashion. Always make the transitions easy for yourself. And then as you come back down, just relax things, just let things relax. Because there is a counter pose to the shoulder stand, and it's referred to as the fish pose. Now I'm going to turn sideways for this one next. Now, as you might notice that before, the chin was tucked in, that squeezes that thyroid gland. Now, one of the things, there's a couple of different methods that people use for this. Now, the initial one is that some people like this transition where they're here. But remember, so many people pull with their heads. Remember, we've always talked about that chin pull. So now, if you notice that when you pull with your chin, you have saliva in your mouth. And if you pull with your chin and you try to swallow, you feel that great constriction in your throat. But if you do, that's one of the things, when you move from the heart and the chest and the open, you can easily swallow back in. Now, this is just, some people use this upright one, okay, where they're just here, okay? And you see how the elbows are kind of underneath the shoulders. And now, the pelvic region goes down towards the floor. Now, as you do that, it encourages the spine to move into the body and the chest to come up. And you see, I'm not pulling with my chin whatsoever. I let the action of the head happen from the way that my heart is interacting. This method or this approach is not my favorite personally. Okay, now I'm going to transition from this into the second phase of this. So now I'm just going to let the spine sort of soft through the arms, and the arms just easily come down. Now, as they come down from that, now, my hands are kind of elongated and my arms down the side of my body. Now, remember, it's that, boom, the pelvic region goes down into this, so it helps create that curvature in your spine. So as that pelvic region starts to go down, just build upon that. So as it goes down, you'll feel that curvature start to come in, and then really engage in the rib cages, the heart and the chest. So you see as it starts to move skyward, and you see the head sits right there. And I can easily swallow. Because if you start pulling with your chin, especially in this position, you really put a lot of pressure in your cervical vertebrae. And this way there's no pressure in your cervical vertebrae whatsoever. Because when people pull, especially in this, because there is some weight in your head, now they recommend, there's subtle recommendations about length of poses. And what those transitions take place, just use your own good judgment. But keep letting that chest and heart really be open and expansive. Now, when I'm ready to just let this release, I just let the head soften. The chin once again just comes down naturally towards the body. The heart comes back naturally into that. And now just let the arms open and the body rest. Now once again, contradictions that in inversion poses you have, the blood flow tends to actually come down in this respect. The heart naturally pumps things the way that it pumps. So always realize that once again, menstrual cycles, you're reversing kind of the flow of things that happen, especially if you have anything going on in your head, headaches, high blood pressure, things like that. You tend to actually want to really just use good caution in that respect. And sometimes they say if you do have eye problems, headaches, any of those things, you do not do inversion poses. Or any time that we are putting high blood pressure, any of those sort of things. So just be really cautious in that respect. Now, as I'm ready, I just easily transition out of this. Coming back forward. Now as I come back forward, I'm just going to come down on my hands and knees and bend back in. Extend those arms forward. Now we're just going to go into frog pose. So now just in that fashion of elongate back, roll these shoulders over, and let the head softly come back down inside of this. Try not to push down inside of the pose. Once again, stay elevated over. And you can transition to these things. Let the hips kind of work themselves into poses. So they're going back and forth. Just feel what your body asks for. So many times we're always telling our body what it should do, rather than what is it really asking for. It has such great wisdom and such great intelligence that it wants to give you. So please listen. And just an easy transition right back up. Okay. As I make that transition back up, now we've practiced this before. Okay. Just a couple poses left. Okay. Now we've practiced this before. Now this is rabbit pose. Now some people have their feet flat, some people have their feet on their toes, but remember this is that deep tuck. Or as I come down into this tucking position, I let my head come close to my knees. I tuck the body really tightly. Now, the hands come where the heels are. So now, as the hips lift, you see how it wants to rotate things towards my head. So the more I lift, I roll the shoulders open, go back to the feet. Lift with the hips, back towards the head. Roll the shoulders open, extend back towards the heels. So I keep moving the weight away from, and that compression away from my head, and really get that lift so the base of the spine really gets this good lift all the way through the body. Nice big curl. Because when you go towards the head, the shoulders, you tend to want to collapse towards the head, so keep rolling them open. So no compression goes into the spine whatsoever. And easy transition, easily down. And then just let the body once again transition easily into child's pose. Now just stay and let yourself relax, keep relaxing in the child's pose. Now as we're ready to come out of child's pose, we're just going to, now, just do some subtle, easy transitions in this sort of savasana. So now just as if I'm sitting, I'm just going to come down onto my back just initially. Just coming down onto my back. Now, just that subtle comfort of just letting the body just easily, now that sort of the essence of the way that the class has gone, we're just coming back into this easy transition. So now, just easily let the legs just come over you. And then just feel as if the hips just fall open, the legs open, and then the subtle close back in. Open, and back in. Open. Just be smooth. Now, notice as the legs are in, the arms kind of have this, they're a little drawn into you. Now, just let the legs fall open to arm's length. And then just draw them back over you. In that over and under effect, try to have that over and under effect once again in your system. So as something comes towards you, slide underneath it. So you just get the tissues, these koshas, the layers in your body to actually really lubricate and learn to slide rather than stick. Now we're just going to add this third element to this, where the legs go open, then they go away to arm's length, they close in and draw back. Out we go, away, back in, and towards. Just create a rhythm. So you have good rhythm with your breath, good rhythm with your movements. Drawing things back in. Open, and away, and back in. Now as we reach back in this next time, just keep the right leg there. Let the left leg now just slide out. Okay. Now once again, the leg, see if you can move it over you somewhat. But keep this leg long, so once again you're encouraging the tissue to move underneath that space. And the leg can go out a little bit if it wishes, but try to keep the pelvic region, instead of rolling over with this, try to keep the pelvic region where it is, so get this space to open. Ascending colon, deep digestive work here. You're lining that limited Nori channels in your body. Now when that transitions, up, transition, 2. Fold. And just that subtle draw, but then as you feel that subtle draw, see if you can coordinate that essence of that leg getting longer underneath. So the spine naturally wants to lengthen underneath that space of something folding over. And try to keep the chin so that you're not pushing pressure back into your head, but that softening of the chin to the body. That's recognition. So you keep these essences of mind and body connected. Now once again, I'm just going to let that leg extend. I'm going to draw the other one up with it. Now as I do that, both legs are going to fold into me somewhat. It's that same thing. As they come to, just feel as if you can move the spine underneath. And if they want to go a little wider, that's certainly in every category you wish to use. It's in this sense, just in me laying here, I had this great vision right through a skylight. And I'm watching this transition, once again, when I was talking about the clouds before, about how they just move through the sky. And see if you can just move through your body in that way. And how clouds seem to be gathered in one spot, and then you see them thin out. And it's that same way that if you have a lot of tension gathered in your body, and they start to thin out, it's that releasing of the tension. Now just from this folded position up, that easy little transition into happy baby pose. There's just this beautiful subtlety about just once again opening so that everything fits through. And easily, subtly, draw it back in. As it comes back in, now just boom, once those feet kind of come to the floor, feel as if the hips, everything transitions easily away from you. Now, I'm going to roll out of this position one time. I'm going to bring something in today for kind of the last class. It's something that's been a great gift in my life, just in many different ways. And I have brought a didgeridoo with me today. But this one is one I use kind of for special things in many ways. They're all special that I have, but this is a crystal didgeridoo. And one of the things I'm just going to do for a short period of time here for your transition for Savasana is to actually play a heartbeat, really. And one of the beauties about, now this is an ancient instrument, mind you. They figured that it's been played for, I mean there's so many guesses about archaeological things and from different things, but anywhere from 10 to 40,000 years. Okay, so I realize that's quite a big space, but the Australian Aboriginal people, who I've had the great opportunity to spend some time with in my life, in this country actually, and they've had a great influence on helping me open my vision into bigger things. Instead of just seeing things the way that our minds tend to see something. We tend to see it and maybe identify it. They tend to see it where everything is interconnected and its whole place in all of life. Now, just opening your vision up to great things in life is just a great thing. And I'm just going to, one of the things that if I was with you in class, I would actually probably have several didgeridoos with me, and I would show what the texture of each one has, and let the people hear each one. And then I would ask for a volunteer from the students, and I have a stethoscope that I carry with me that I would take a heartbeat of that volunteer, and then they would choose the instrument to actually play, and there we would go. As I would use that instrument, and then I would play the heartbeat for a little period of time. But I'm just going to sense my own heartbeat at the moment, and instead of playing into the carpet, I'm going to actually just use the backside of the book here and play back into this. So if you want to just find your own place of relaxation for yourself. Now mind you, in playing this instrument, the beauty that indigenous people knew so many things about science is discovering, I would just put it that way, is that now generally horn players are played with very pursed tight lips. Okay? The didgeridoo is played with very loose lips, and that fluttering of the lips, which creates the drone sound in the instrument, actually affects the pineal gland. And they've done all these great studies how it affects the alpha waves inside of the system. Okay, so it actually helps bring mind body in a very relaxed state. So instead of just brain waves being up and down, it helps bring back that smooth transitionary state. So fluttering your lips is such a beautiful thing to do for yourself. And you get this great blood flow to your lips too. So the more you flutter your lips, the more blood flow you get there, and your kisses will feel better too. So if you kiss people a lot, I encourage you to actually flutter your lips and even learn to play this instrument as well. Okay. If there's really any weird things about this instrument too, is I make them and teach and all this other sort of things with them as well, but I'll leave that up. But now, I'm just going to calm myself from speaking for a moment before I transition into the instrument and just sense my own heartbeat. I'm just going to play the instrument here for a little short period of time, and if you have the ability to actually transition for yourself, to actually put in a headset, it's encouraged, just because you might just get a better sense and a better feel for what truly comes through the instrument. And the beautiful things about your heart is it has this beautiful language. If you listen to a heart long enough, it has almost these vowel sounds that it actually starts to emanate. So many times we listen to that thump, 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 and instead of the wong, it has this elongated, beautiful background element inside of it. hopefully you relaxed during some of that anyway. So, it's very rhythmic patterns and rhythmic patterns within your own body, and especially listening to your own heartbeat many times, has a great, great, great sort of relaxing element to you, that it tunes you back into your own system in many ways. Well, gang, you know what, it's just that this has been lovely with you, even though I've only seen you half the time in this whole transitionary period. But I just want to send from my heart to hopefully all of yours of that, what a great gift all of you have been for me, is that what you teach me and what you bring into my life is such a great reward. So thanks, and thanks and thanks and thanks and thanks, many, many thanks. So